like one of the crazy ones was when a shark came, kind of bit the camera a little bit, and then kind of moved on, and then it had a hook and leader stuck to its dorsal fin, and that hook and leader hooked onto my camera, and then we went for a ride, and I'm sitting there fighting this tiger shark with my camera, and I'm like, why won't this shark let it go? You know, like they always let it go, because it's not, I mean, they know immediately it's not food when they bite it and they spit it out. And this one was taking it.
What's going on, everybody? Have you ever been on a bridge or a pier or someplace like a jetty? You're wondering what in the world could possibly live down there. Our guest today, Shane Reynolds of @ColorEarthPro. He's with us today, and that's exactly what he does. Not only does he drop these 360 cameras down and get some of the most incredible footage I've ever seen, but he also flies his drone and gets some great stuff. He actually goes scuba diving, and he's always filming. I wanted to have him on the show because I knew he would have some great stories, and he did not disappoint. That is Shane Reynolds, Shane-O of @ColorEarthPro. Go follow his account. You're going to really enjoy it and get ready for a great conversation. This is the Tom Rowland Podcast, brought to you by Starbright.
What's up? Shane Reynolds here. This is the Tom Rowland Podcast. Color Earth time.
Okay, Shane, what's up, man?
Not much, man. What's up with you?
I am really happy to have you here. I was following you on Instagram, and you do these camera drops on Instagram, and they're really cool. I really like it. And I actually wanted to talk about that, which we will, of course. But then I started researching you, and you are a really interesting guy, man. You've done a tremendous amount of production on the Discovery Channel and Nat Geo, Travel Channel, worked in 65 countries. Like, what is going on with all of that? I didn't know that from your Instagram. I thought we were just going to talk about what lives under piers.
Yeah, I mean, the internet appreciates simplicity, and the camera drops are, as I've said many times before, that it's something a nutless monkey could do when it comes to just dropping a 360 camera to see what's down there. But it's something I enjoy doing, and it's something that resonates with the audience out there, because it's it's just interesting. It has context, and people are interested in what's under their local piers and bridges. And I think
the monsters that you're showing down there.
Yeah, like right.
Tiger sharks and Goliaths and all kinds of stuff. Like,
yeah, and I mean, there is just an endless amount of just big fish, especially in my backyard, which is kind of what instigated it. And we'll get into that. But I mean, as you were asking, it's just, I think historically the internet is just, doesn't really care as much about really high end production and things like that. So it's, my life in production started in the 90s, and we've been at it for years and years, and I've done my own shows on Travel Channel and had my own show on Nat Geo Wild, and I still to this day get more recognized for a local show I did here 20 years ago, and for camera drops that I do around piers. So,
wow. Well, how did the big productions start? The national or the Nat Geo and the Discovery Channel shows and the travel shows, and your own show. You've been on both sides of the camera on these, right?
Throughout, I'm a severe ADHD kid, and just hyperactive, and just couldn't, I have to kind of bounce around with different things. And, when I started in the world of production in the late 90s, it was one of those situations where back then you had to pick something, or else you wouldn't be considered, they wouldn't take you seriously with any of it. And I wanted to host, and I wanted to edit, and I wanted to shoot, and I wanted to, do a little bit of everything. And, my ADHD kind of let me, I could focus on all those things and sometimes kind of juggle them. And I got good at doing it. And I think when the world caught up with one-man bands and, people wearing multiple hats in the world of production. That was sometime around 2005 or so is when Travel Channel kind of stepped in, when I was making my own local show called Destination Soundcheck. And I was shooting it, hosting it, editing it, the whole deal. And they came up with this revolutionary production model where they were going to, with one guy and a PA, they're going to go around making a travel show that this host is going to kind of shoot with a PA and shoot themselves. And, and a lot of it was selfie style things, which we had to do on heavier rigs because we didn't have those tiny little cameras back then. And it was grueling and, but it was a dream come true because we were just flying all over the world and doing these travel shows and I was able to edit it and, do pretty much most of the production work. So it allowed me to kind of hone in those skills of like I said, like a one-man band production model and being able to produce mobily. And so that, and if you live in the world of production, then once executives kind of they only live at certain networks for 3 to 5 years and then they clean house, get bought out, and then these producers move on to other networks, and then you end up having more connections at different networks because it's just this sprawling network. And so an executive producer that I worked with that I still get along, I still speak with today, and we're still looking for other projects. He went to Nat Geo Wild, and that connected me up there, which led to my own show, Shane Untamed, which was just a bigger production and similar scope of, I'm a cinematographer looking for the biggest animals kind of thing in weird places. And, and then that kind of, we were slated for a second season with that show, and that pretty much same deal. It got bought out. Everybody got fired. My second season got taken off the slate, and but it was a long journey of network shows like that, because I ended up going back to Travel Channel, did a couple more shows. A lot of it was on travelchannel.com, and then started working with other people's shows and doing more specialty cam, where I was, doing underwater cinematography for the Cousteaus and their show for Caribbean Pirate Treasure. And, just different, started really getting into the technology of 360s and drones and, just weird little cameras and focusing in on that because I was, one, it was more interesting to me. And also it was, just more creative and less shouldering up with these giant cameras as I'm getting older and, not wanting to do these one-man band things. And then, growing up here in Florida, I was born and raised here, and, I left for Nashville just for a number of years and came back. So I've been back in Florida doing my own thing production wise since 2002. And as I've said, I tell people it's an amazing place to grow up and an amazing place to end up. But it's a terrible place to be in the summer. Especially here in Destin, because it's just so hot and crowded and such a mess. But over the last 5 years, there's been so many new developments in the marine life and new discoveries with these aggregations of sharks and, all the redfish that live under the bridge and all these cool things that I spend more time out in the water than I do in the traffic during the summers, and it's just endless amounts of things to explore, it seems. And it's kind of reinvigorated me for the summers here, where I used to, travel to get away from it and just try to spend the shoulder seasons here. Now this is my favorite time of year. Really? That's cool. Yeah. It's really cool when something like that happens. So when, and now you're kind of leaning into social media, or you have other projects that you're working on? I still keep up with specific clients. I still do a lot of work with the Cousteaus and, reef restoration, coral reef restoration projects. And, things like that. I've got a few local clients that I deal with. I try to keep my plate as clean as I can for the summers here. And just so I can go out to the pier, and when there's a chance to dive with them, when there's, I'd like to go out and kind of check the black tip and spinner shark aggregation every morning if I can, and go out to the pier as often as I can and monitor what's, how many sharks are there. If they're the same one, like I named one 3 years ago and we've seen that shark every year. If a bridge dive kind of opens itself up, you can only do that certain times when the conditions are perfect. And so there's just a lot of, summer's full of just pivots and opportunities. And by leaning into all the social media aspects, I've got people constantly kind of going, hey, man, you want to hop on my boat? I've got a cool reef you need to come check out. So it's awesome because I'm just trying to stay open to whatever's going to happen from June till August.
That's great, man. What do you think your favorite, like you mentioned, like all these little specialty cameras and stuff like that, and they're coming out with some really cool stuff. And I see that you're doing a lot of your stuff with the 360 camera that you're dropping. But do you have a favorite, like little camera that, I know that there's one that I don't want to put any words in your mouth, but do you have a favorite little camera that you like to shoot on? Like a specialty camera?
I would say, everything's for a different use. I've got big rigs from the FX3 to the GH6 that I like both of those cameras quite a bit. And, then you get down, like I'm less and less impressed with GoPros and, things like that. I think Insta360 is really kind of brought a lot to the table in terms of, the flexibility of 360 cameras is insane. The way you can kind of tell a story with those and tell multiple stories as opposed to dropping an action cam or a GoPro down and just whatever you catch on frame, that's what you got. But even the Ace 2 Pro, that the action cam that Insta360 just came out with, like the colors that thing gets underwater is insane. Like it's been a battle with GoPros from the beginning, and that stuff just comes right out of the camera looking. I've never seen a camera understand underwater white balance as well as it does for such a little package of a camera.
They're getting better and better. I was really surprised at the trouble that GoPro has been having financially. I didn't know about that. I read a story about it, about the drone that they came out with, about killed them apparently. But
and they just focus.
The cameras just keep getting smaller and smaller and smaller and better and better and better. Yeah. I like that little Osmo thing. You ever use those? It's like this little, it's just like a spy camera. Like we would have thought that was a spy camera when we were kids, and it just does incredible things. Like, I don't know. I like that 360 though, that you're doing. And obviously other people like it too, because you're getting insane views on your camera drops and the other stuff that you're doing with that camera too. It's really cool.
Yeah. And it's, a year ago, I would have told you that 360s are just toys. And they're fun toys because you can get amazing things with them and perspectives from them. But the housings, I think it's only been a little over a year that they've started making the invisible underwater housings where you can't see the housing in the frame. So it's and even still, I think that the image quality from a GoPro or an Ace 2 Pro, or especially all the other, FX3 and all those things are far superior to the image quality you're going to get out of a 360, but you're not going to get the flexibility and the, being able to tell the story that you can with a 360. So, right. and online, social media is so much more forgiving in that respect. I can put all the bells and whistles together with my Nauticam housing and go do something, Nat Geo quality, and it'll do a fraction of what a quick camera drop's going to do for me on social media.
Crazy.
It's wild.
It's not just you. It's not just you, it's the same thing. We have all our big cameras and a crew, and you put that on social, and it's not as good as a phone video. I don't know why that is, but it is 100% the case. Where do you think we're going with like the 360 cameras? Do you see a world where you could shoot a whole project on a 360 camera, or is it still kind of a toy, or will it? I don't know. Where are we going?
I mean, I think it's somewhere in between a toy and a useful aspect of production these days. I think the fact that you can frame a native 4K frame out of your 360 video is the first step. It was up until last year, you could only frame an HD clip out of the littler ones that the prosumer ones that everyone's using. And, but I mean, it's got a ways to go, but I feel like it's the future. I think in 5 years, 360 cameras are going to have image quality that we're seeing with, DSLRs at this point. Really? And I think they'll just, as people kind of progress and we make better housings for them, everything right now is plastic, and I go through 2 or 3 underwater housings a month because it's once you get a scratch on them, you're going to see that scratch in every shot, and they scratch really easily, whether you hit a piling, whether a shark bites them, whether, they're just flimsy. They're cheaply made. They're cheap to buy, thankfully. But, I think being able to just put a camera on a stick and go run around and experience something, really organically. I mean, there's times when I'll go do a dive, I'll just put a 360 on a pole, and that allows me to be 100% present in that dive, as opposed to thumbing around with all the bells and whistles on my housing, which I love that too. It's just a different kind of dive. Like, but if you're just holding a 360 on a stick and you're diving, like, you can just let all that go because it's rolling. It's hitting everything, so you can deal with it later.
How many times have you had the experience of going back and looking at the footage and realizing what was behind you that you had no idea was behind you when you have the 360 camera? I would imagine that's happening more often than I don't know. I would imagine it does happen.
Yeah, that definitely happens. I think a lot of times, most of the time, you're looking at footage from that and going, man, the water looks a lot clearer on the video than it did when I was down there. And, there's certain things that come into frame well before you realize they were there. And, so it sees things in a way that we don't. And the other issue with it is that I get constant, for instance, with them, they're essentially 2 really fisheye lenses back to back that they're stitching together. And if you understand how fisheye lenses work, then you know that, like, if your face is here, your face is enormous, and whatever's over here is extremely small. So you have a 12-foot shark right over here. It's going to look like it's about 6 feet in the video, and whether or not you put a tape measure up to it and to prove it, people on social media be like, there's no way that's a 12-foot shark. And you're like, well, I mean, these things alter perception to a point in which that it doesn't make sense to normal people. But if you understand how fisheye lenses work, then that's just the way it is. So
we're having a little bit of a problem with the internet, and you are kind of going in and out in my headphones, but I think I heard you correctly that the way that the 360 camera is working right now, or maybe the way it's going to work in the future, this is what I didn't hear. I didn't know if I heard it correctly, but you can select certain things and pull out and choose that in the edit, because I could see that if you could get a 360 camera that had the definition that you were looking for, and you could zoom in and you could crop, and you could choose to use the 360, or you could choose to use a standard image, then that's all you would need. And
Yeah.
Do you think that we could get there with something small like that?
For sure. There's drones coming out now with 100 megapixel photos, and like once all that gets integrated and we get to a point in which, even GoPros, you can shoot things in a flat space where in post you can kind of change it to whatever setting you want later, which affects the frame rate, but it gives you flexibility in terms of how you want to frame something. So I think 360s are right behind that. Once they get the image quality high enough, the prosumer ones are like 8K right now. I think once they get up to, I don't know, 12K or 16K, somewhere like that, and you're still framing up a 4K image, like that extra resolution, it'll get you to a point where you like, okay, do you want to really take the fisheye out of this shot? Do you really want to just, make it more realistic, or do you want to make it more cinematic, or do you want to make it more just fantasy style? Like, I think they're going to get to a point in which you could probably create anything you want.
That's and then probably integrate AI into it, where they take your original image, and now you can use that image to create whatever. But
for sure,
it's interesting how all this technology, it really kind of like, in some ways, it changes so many different things. Like when you're telling me that, I'm thinking about all of these, the links I've gone to have certain cameramen work for me over the years, because I know that guy's got the eye. That guy shoots in a certain way that it's just beautiful. You could have 3 guys shooting together, and one guy's stuff is just way better because of his framing, because of the settings in the camera, because of the way that he sees all of this happening. And then when we start moving into this world, it seems like that same person with those same skills, the eye, the look, what they're looking for, the way that they're setting this up, is going to be the editor. Like that's a big change, because if we go to those kind of 360 cameras, or just a camera that's taking in everything, then the creativity comes in the edit.
That's true. And I think 2 things about that. I think one, that's one of the reasons why I feel like I've been able to be successful over the long haul, because from the beginning, my thought on that matter was that if you are shooting and editing, then you shoot as an editor, and you understand, like, I need these angles, and you're telling the story in your head already as an editor while you're shooting it. Therefore, people that get it later are like, oh man, they covered everything. They got everything I needed. And then 2, that obviously is kind of, that storytelling ability is honed in post, where you really just, one, you understand how to tell a story. So when you move to something like a 360 camera, then, and you already know how to tell a story, then you can kind of even get creative with the 360 camera and how you're utilizing it. So like, if you follow Insta360, for example, they put up a lot of content where they're, these 10-foot poles and these things which, like I've dove with them enough now to know that, like, if I dive with a underwater 360 cam, I'm going to put it on a pole that'll extend like 10 feet, because there's certain species that I can send the camera to, because they're not going to get close enough to me. And they'll actually get really interested in that lens because they can see themselves in the reflection, or it looks like a little bit of a weird fish. Or I can let the camera go and just float on its own, and they'll inspect that. Or I'll make sure, instead of just holding it up here and just getting the same shot throughout the whole dive, I'll try to put it underneath a shark and follow it. Or, there's just different ways you can utilize it to get a different angle on the 360 itself. And then you bring it into post, and you can kind of use all that content to tell a story. And you don't have to go back and get pickup shots and inserts and all these different things. So
it's incredible. That's how we started our show. I don't know if you've even seen our show, but it's called Saltwater Experience. We've been on the air for 20 years, and we started with one camera, one guy like you, very similar to you. I mean, like when I'm talking to you, I'm like, man, this guy's a lot like Hop. And Hop, our producer, he was also quite a musician. So he wrote and composed originally all the scores for the whole thing. So not only is he doing exactly what you're saying, he is watching us fish. He's saying, okay, I got it. This is how we're going to tell the story. I need this shot. And we'd have to do, I mean, after a while, we just listened to him. We're like, whatever you need, man. And then he's composing the music in his head all while we're out there. It's incredible. It was really incredible to watch.
I need to meet that dude because like I've got, we've got all the instruments here, got drums in there. I've been writing and recording music since I was 15 and it's another product of ADHD and just, trying to keep control of the story you're trying to tell. Yeah, and those are all elements.
Be best friends, or you're going to hate each other immediately. I'll definitely hook you up. But I mean, he's has he's had record contracts. He's just a really. I'm fascinated with people like you and him because you just have so much talent in so many different areas, and it's rare, I think, to see somebody that can bring it all together into one package. Like a TV show or a YouTube video, or I don't know, maybe it's becoming more common because I guess when we all started this, all of these tools were so expensive that it was rare for one person to be able to have all these tools. Right. Like to have all the music making stuff and to have all the camera. I mean, we were using a beta cam that was $100,000 and you wouldn't drop the door open with the thing today. It's the worst camera ever. Your phone is better. Right. And but he did have access to a lot of that stuff. And anyway, when we look at it, some of the early shows, like, man, that show was amazing. It was great. And we shot that with one camera, no drone, no underwater. We shot it with one camera and we just made do with what we had. And it was more like a documentary. And then over time, we've just added more and more cameras, more and more tools, more and more toys. And in some cases, it's not better. It's just more. Right. No. How did you first try that 360 camera? What about that camera was interesting to you with all of this other stuff that you've done? What makes you pick that thing up?
I think it was I try to keep up with technology as in the last like 10 years, I've really marketed myself more as a specialty cam operator than I would say as a director of photography or as it's just more of a package in terms of, we're going to use VR, we're going to use 360 and drones and underwater and all these different technologies to kind of rig them up in fun and creative ways. And so when 360s came out, it was just a natural progression to be like, okay, what's this all about? I probably should familiarize myself with it and see if it's of use. And in the beginning, it was more of an interesting toy, like I said, that I didn't really feel like was of any real benefit, but I saw the potential in it. And knowing how these kind of cameras progress, it's like, dude, in 5 years, this shit's going to be like part of every production package. Mm-hmm. And it's one of those too, where the same GoPro rigs for car scenes they've been doing for God knows, I can't even keep up anymore. And it's the same setup. It's almost a formula how they do it. And now you can kind of just say, hey, just rig up one 360 right here. And then we can kind of do something different with this interior car scene, or at least add it to the mix and gives just a different feel and change this all up. So it doesn't all feel like the same reality TV show, because really, if you're going to utilize all this new technology, do it in a way that makes people go, oh, I haven't seen that before. Right. Because like you said, you can add all you want to it, but the core of it is storytelling. So if you're telling good stories, it doesn't matter how much technology you bring to the table. But if you bring the new technology, then utilize that to at least make people feel like they're seeing something different.
Interesting. Yeah, I'm with you. I remember even the days when kind of GoPros were first coming out and like, I'm thinking this is going to be part of every package, but there were still people that were like, that little thing, no way. Like, there's no way that you're going to use GoPro footage on the Discovery Channel. It's like,
oh, dude, we did an expedition in Egypt, and I had one of the GoPro SD versions. I still have it, and I heard they were putting out an HD version, and everybody was shooting HD back then. This was in 2009, I think.
Yeah.
And so I called GoPro at the office, and there were 3 people at the office, at the GoPro office, and they answered, and I talked to them directly, told them we were doing this expedition. I was like, dude, I hear you're coming out with HD stuff. We're going to be diving and doing all this crazy shit in the desert and in the Mediterranean. And like, these would be amazing as a part of this production package. And they said, cool, man. And they packaged like 3 of beta versions of their HD cameras and sent it with a bunch of rigs and setups and it was that simple. And we took them over there because to me, it was obvious that like all that has to happen is you guys have to be able to make HD quality video that could be interspersed with these other things. So it was the same with 360 cameras. If you just get to a point where you're shooting, where I can frame a 4K shot out of this, and it's not just crazy crude, if it looks somewhat decent, then you can use it. And so we're there now, and we're making like underwater footage that people are kind of like, oh wow, that's really interesting. I haven't seen anything like that. But they're going to have to move faster now, because I think a lot of people are going to be like, okay, I've seen that now, all that stuff's starting to look the same. So they're going to have to, up the technology.
What we were talking about before, though, is if they up the technology just to the resolution, then you can do different things in the edit,
right?
That people have never seen before,
right?
Like, that's pretty interesting. Yeah, very cool. So when I was doing this research on you, going from the most technology to of the conversation we're having right now, of all this different technology, to maybe the least technology, I run across a story about you in Guyana. And I don't know if you've talked about this in a while, but that sounded like a wild trip, man. What happened there?
Yeah, that one was my Everest. That was for my show, Shane Untamed. And we wanted to do a jungle themed episode, and more of an adventure based thing that wasn't kind of centered around big animals, which was most of the series, but we wanted to do a big adventure. And there was a tepui, which is a flat topped mountain that is located deep in the Guyana jungle. And on the top of this tepui is a sinkhole. And while the people have summited this tepui, they've never been into the sinkhole. So it was an unexplored space on Earth. So we decided, okay, I'm going to get a couple climbing guides, and we're going to do an expedition into the jungle. We're going to climb this tepui, and we're going to rappel down into this sinkhole. And this was all intel through a National Geographic explorer who had attempted to do it, and they weren't able to finish the expedition. And it was set up through this fixer that was with us in the jungle, but he was a shady character. And he estimated, he gave us a budget of, let's say, $10,000, and I got $20,000, and and essentially had to have a porter carry that money. And so we could pay all the porters that it took to go into the jungle and do this. And this was I want to say it's 5-day hike to get into where we needed to go. And by day 3, the fixer had renegotiated each night to the point at which, and we had to pay porters each morning, to the point at which day 4 we woke up and all the money was gone.
Oh no.
So it was, so at that point, all the porters left, and we essentially had to leave like $20,000 worth of gear sitting at this waterfall that we had made it to. Thankfully, that was a beautiful area that we could make a a destination out of. And then all of a sudden the show turned into a survival episode. And we just took what we could carry on our back. So we went from just carrying minimal things and making a show to, me, 2 climbing guides, a shooter, and one other guy actually like putting as much weight as we could on our back of our gear and hauling out. So, and it took from what took 4 days to get in, it took like 6 or 7 days to get out. And like, I lost like 20 pounds that I can't afford to lose. Like, I'm only $150 anyway. And I came back at like 130 pounds and, like just, it was absolutely brutal. And like my climbing guide was this world-renowned climbing guide. And he's been through the craziest shit you could ever imagine. And just the most positive dude. And even he broke. I remember seeing him on the sat phone, and they were supposed to send a helicopter. The government had a helicopter set up. And then that turned out that was never even an option, and they weren't ever going to send it. And so we might've been stranded up on top of this tepui anyway. And I just watched him lose it, and everybody just freaking the hell out. And so it was crazy. And it was like this huge debacle because I'm trying to make a really good show. And, a couple of the guys are like, we need to just bail all this gear and get out of here. And I'm just like, dude, I'm not walking out of this jungle without something. Right. That ain't going to happen. And so when we got out, we made a show with what we had, and it ended up being the network's favorite show, even though it wasn't the one that they agreed for me to have.
How did you keep all these guys together? Like, it sounds like people are breaking, you don't have any food. Like, do you take charge here, or did you all come together and
I definitely was easing tensions between the shooter and one of the climbing guides, because the shooter was on my side about, yeah, dude, we're not walking out of here without making a show. And he was on one of the mountain guides was the climbing guides was definitely like, no, dude, we need to get out of here, and we need to just put your shit down and let's go. And I was kind of, leaning more towards the getting a show because, I didn't feel like we were in survival mode yet. And I was like, dude, when we get into survival mode, then we'll drop it all and go. But right now we've taken enough food to get us out. We've, we're big boys. We'll figure it out, It was a lot of that. And, and my other climbing guide who I was talking about before, like I said, just a solid dude. And he was just like, let's just do what we got to do, So I think thankfully I had a tough enough team, and regardless of any issues or anger that arose throughout that experience, I think everybody involved was just on board with like doing what we had to do. So there was no like real breakdowns or any kind of things that we had to deal with like that.
Team back together again?
No. However, that climbing guide that I was telling you about ended up flying back like 6 months later, and because he just had to climb this tepui and he did it on his own. And he was like, so he hired the porters, went in, and we paid him to pick up all the gear we left at the waterfall. So he ended up bringing back most of it because it was just sitting in, 12 miles deep into the jungle. So it was, it was kind of a wild full circle.
Wow. That's a hell of a story, man. That is, I mean, you're in such a primitive place that it doesn't leave much room for error. It was an environment where if you took the wrong step, you could impale your foot. If you tripped on the wrong thing and sprained an ankle, like what will we have done? Like there were so many things that could have gone wrong that the fact that we got out of there the way we did with the show in hand was a miracle. Yeah. So I definitely wanted to ask you about that, but I still have to get back to your social media. When did you start embracing social media?
I've been throwing darts at the wall with social media for a number of years now. And I think what happened with my social media, obviously, like the camera drops have really resonated. And, I think, but one of the things that changed for me was kind of moving from that aspect of just like, what kind of content can I make that's going to get views and get likes and all that shit. And instead just making content I enjoy making. Mm-hmm. And a lot of that I think came along with the advent of being able to use whatever music you want.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure.
I think I don't know when I forget when that changed in the last few years, but up to that point, it was like, you get flagged for using anything. Right. You put an AC/DC song would be insane on this clip, but I'm going to get flagged and then it's going to be a problem and whatever. And so I got to use this awful music track that I don't want to use. And it just made me feel like, you're just not proud of the content you're making. So when that kind of allowed me to do that, then it felt like I was making that local show 20 years ago again, because we could do that back then. You put whatever you want and it's on least access channel, but now we can kind of pick from anything we want that's going to fit this thing. And as a musician, that's a big part of it for me. Like I want to pick the right music track to really set the mood. So being able to do that reinvigorated my desire to do it and my creativity in doing it. And then, and the luck of being where I am, being in a destination that people want to be, and having all these opportunities with marine life and traveling the way I do work. And, so it's constantly changing, and it constantly gives me an opportunity to keep my content fresh and keep my desire to do it fresh.
Yeah. What do you, with all these camera drops and different things, you've had some that have really, really taken off. Others maybe didn't do maybe as well as you might have wanted, but they're still interesting to you. What do you think the craziest thing that you've seen on one of those drops is, or that surprised you?
That's a good question. I think one of them was like, it's weird how each one, if you went out on the pier every day and you just saw the same tiger sharks circling around and around and around, and you just do these drops, you'd think that all of them would eventually just start looking exactly the same. But the weird thing is, the more you do it, it's rare I don't come back with something that I'm like, oh man, I'm definitely going to post that. Because just their behavior changes so much, and the things that are following them. And there was one time I remember, like one of the crazy ones was when a shark came, kind of bit the camera a little bit, and then kind of moved on. And then it had a hook and leader stuck to its dorsal fin. And that hook and leader hooked onto my camera. And then we went for a ride, and I'm sitting there fighting this tiger shark with my camera. And I'm like, why won't this shark let it go? Like they always let it go, because it's not, they know immediately it's not food when they bite it and they spit it out. And this one was taking it. And I'm like, geez, and finally it just broke free. And I thought I might have broke the line. And I'm like, gee, well, there goes my first camera. And I reel it up, and all of a sudden it catches and it's still there. And when I reel it up, the whole leader and hook is attached to it. And then you have this on the video. So it's like, oh, this thing had a hook and leader stuck to it, and my camera actually ripped it off of them. And it created this whole nother story to how this drop played out, and then
that's like something you could never recreate.
Right.
Like,
right.
How
the
would
odds,
you ever do that?
The odds of that happening. And then there's other drops where I did one off the Destin Bridge, and I'd happen to get snagged up on a little thing that looked like an anchor or a Segway or something weird, but it wasn't anything that seemed that interesting to me. and, eventually I just kind of put it aside. I have a ton of these just sitting on deck in case I need to just post something. And I pulled that one up and I'm like, I'll post that one and say, this is what I got hung up on. And there was a big school of redfish over next to it, but I've posted a bunch of those, and for whatever reason, like that got that went super viral, and people were like, that you just got interested in like guessing what this thing is that I got hung up on. And it's like, I never imagined like that one would do anything.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. But the interesting thing about that is like what we've been talking about before was like the way you tell a story and the way that like you make a great TV show or something. And it seems like the way that you make a great social clip is oftentimes a story is told in a way that you never expected. Like it's happening on its own, like that thing, like that story that you just told. The viewer is like, oh, what is this? And that gets them to watch.
Right.
But you couldn't, it's almost like you couldn't like come up with that on your own. It had to kind of happen organically, naturally.
Yeah.
Which I don't know. That seems to be the ones that really do take off. Whether it's somebody, having an accident, falling down, or like getting stuck like that. Those are the ones
exactly.
that really take off. Exactly. It's crazy. So let's see here. So the camera drops. Do you think that the technology will improve to where you can do different ones? Will it be with a 360 camera always, or do you see it kind of changing anytime?
I think there's potentially a future, and I think that I get so many people asking about, my rig, and they want to go out and do it at their pier or their, bridge, or see what's underneath, and how do I do this? So I don't know if it's enough of a market for the technology to steer itself in that direction. But I feel like if there was, then there's room for them to kind of make a line that would like feed a live feed of the video back to you if you're going to drop it. Yeah. And I think there's, that was feeding back, like electric fishing line. Yeah. So that sounds super cool. So I think live feeding is part of the next step. I think being able to maybe maneuver it out of certain situations or something. But to me, the simplicity of just dropping the line and looking at it later to see what I got, it just feels, it's like Christmas morning a lot of times. Like you just don't really know. Like I did one at the Pensacola Bridge, just because I've had a lot of people talk to me about how much stuff is down there, and the visibility was literally like that. It was chocolate water, and I was like, well, I came all this way, I'm going to go do it anyway. And I dropped them in a couple of different places, and thankfully I saw some dolphins playing at one piling, and I was like, if there's dolphins here, that's probably a good indicator of something going on here. We'll drop another one here. And almost every drop had like a shark going by it, some gars going by it, had caught cownose rays going by, like in visibility like that. So like I went home thinking, I'm sure I didn't get anything there. And then when I'm going through the footage, I'm like, oh my God, there's a bull shark coming out and checking out the camera. Okay, cool.
Yeah. So I'll tell you what, well, it's the 50th anniversary of Jaws. Yeah. This summer. That movie came out 50 years ago. I'm sure you're as surprised about that as I am, because I seem to remember going to that movie in the theater, but it created this, this like panic about getting in the water.
Right.
And then you're telling me that every drop in Pensacola, you're seeing sharks. Like that's what's happening when you're getting in the water too, by the way. Yeah. But you just don't see it.
Yeah.
Right. And you can't see behind you, and you can't see 360. But I don't know. Oftentimes they just come check it out and then move on. They're probably doing the same thing to you.
Yeah. Right? Yeah. No, there's sharks everywhere out here.
Yeah, there are sharks everywhere. And one of the things that I've asked a lot of people that have been on the water for a long time is, what do you think about how has the shark population changed? I don't know, in the last 15 or 20 years for you and where you are and what you've seen on the water?
This one's an interesting subject because I have this conversation a lot with fishermen, with people in the marine biologists. They all have very varying opinions on the matter. My take on it is just respecting whatever people are seeing within their own universe. You know what I mean? Like I think for me, like I said, the shark activities changed quite a bit over just the last 5 years. You know, we started noticing tiger sharks aggregating at the Okaloosa Island Pier just 4 or 5 years ago, and that was 5 to 10 on any given day. And now it's grown to like there's days where there's more than 30 just circling around the pier. And you know, same with noticing the black tip and spinner shark aggregation off the West Jetty. That's grown. Actually, that aggregation's kind of gotten smaller over the last couple of years. When I first started tracking that, it was more like 500 or so. And then
tracking that with a drone or like
drone mostly.
Okay,
drone.
okay.
We've been working on ways to get underwater footage of them. They're just so skittish. It's hard to triangulate how to do it properly. We're getting there. But you know, so you have that aggregation, and I think a lot of people, especially on social media, you see a shot of a shark aggregation, and you're like, okay, there's too many sharks. And say, yeah, but if you observe this aggregation over time, the aggregation's actually gotten smaller. So like you could consider that more of like, that's not evidence of too many sharks or any kind of indicator of what the population of sharks are out there. That's just like a concert that people would go to, right?
Right.
So you have to watch that over time and see, okay, if the aggregation is 200 and it used to be 500, does that mean there's less sharks? You know, I think there's a lot of mistaken identity. I think a lot of people, when we show footage of the tiger sharks, they're like, oh man, those are the ones that steal my catch all the time. And I'm like, okay, that's not really a tiger shark behavior. They tend to just pick up dead stuff off the bottom. And if they were stealing catches, then I think people at the pier would have a lot of problems bringing in their catch. And I've never seen anyone on the pier get their catch stolen from a tiger. So that's more of a bull shark behavior, things like that. And then, you know, and then when we get into the sensitive subjects of it, because I understand fishermen's frustration with losing their catches and seeing more and more sharks, but I also understand that, like, you know, I respect what they're seeing because they're on the water every day, right? However, they're within the confines typically of 100 square miles that they're fishing, and that's not an indicator of the Gulf as a whole. It wouldn't be the indicator of the Atlantic as a whole. And so you have to understand that, like, look, you know, yes, I'm seeing more sharks where I'm fishing, but does that mean there's more sharks, or does that mean they're moving from other areas where they used to feed? We're protecting certain species more than others. Which is throwing things out of balance. So what's the answer? Is it to kill more things? Is it to protect other things? Is it, you know, I don't think anyone really knows, but what I do know is that the fishermen think the scientists are biased, and the scientists think the fishermen are biased. And in my mind, I think they're arguing for two different things. Like fishermen are trying to rebalance the fisheries so they can catch more fish again. And scientists are just trying to rebalance the ecosystem. And those two things are very different things, and they're treating them like the same issue.
Right. Yeah. I mean, those are good observations, and observations certainly from somebody that, like yourself, you've obviously spent a lot of time on the water. There are fishermen that, travel for these tournaments or constantly are moving, and they're not fishing 100 square miles. They're fishing in Texas, and then in Louisiana, and then in Maryland, and then in South Carolina, and then in Key West. And they're seeing the same thing kind of behavior happening in all of these places.
Right.
But they are a certain distance off the coast.
Right.
And that's what's remaining uniform.
Right.
And so I think that it could be said that a certain distance off of our coast, there are a lot more sharks. Now, I had Chris Fisher on the show, and we were talking about sharks, and he obviously knows a lot about sharks.
Right.
The O-Search guy, and he's tagged all of these sharks, and he is a reluctant shark fisherman. I mean, he didn't start tagging sharks because he loves catching sharks. It's the other way around. He loves catching billfish, and shark fishing was like, who wants to do that?
Right.
But he started tagging them, and it became a science project. He doesn't do it because he loves sharks, but he's seen a lot of these things. And I was very interested in his perspective. And his perspective was that the ocean is rebounding, and you would not have this many sharks if you didn't have enough things for the sharks to be eating. So he sees it as an overall win for everybody, that there are more fish, more sharks, more predators, more bait, more of everything.
Yeah.
And I do tend to agree with that. That it's a positive thing. I don't like it when you catch a beautiful mutton snapper that comes up half, or even like an undersized fish that you would have released and it comes up half, right?
Yeah.
Like that's a dead fish. Yeah. And for the reason that would have been released. But it's a very interesting topic that seems to, I don't know, for a while I would have people on that just would not, and oftentimes they didn't come from the state of Florida, but they would not even consider that in some places in the world you could have a shark kind of explosion in the population, and then but maybe the overall population of the worldwide shark population was declining somehow.
Right.
But there's a lot of different fishing methods. There's a lot of different things going on. The ocean's a very, very big place. Yeah. And I think that it is extremely possible that you can have populations abounding in certain areas and there aren't any in other areas. Yeah. And I try to keep an open mind to that. And I also realize that the ocean is such a big place that I absolutely do not know what's going on in areas that I don't go to.
That's exactly where I'm at. Is I feel like we all should be on this level of we don't really know, because the ocean is a very unexplored place, and just to say that your opinion on this matter is definitive is ignorant in my mind, because
I think you
can only know.
That's exactly what it is when you use ignorant in the right frame. You don't know. That is ignorance, right? And sometimes ignorance is used in a really derogatory way, but it is that way.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know either. These are my guesses. These are things.
You do have people that absolutely do know that where they fish and what they do and where they go on a daily basis, this is their experience. Yeah. Of more aggressive, and it's happening faster and faster. Like on the first drop, like it used to happen after you caught 20 fish. Yeah, you would maybe get one attacked.
It's the same with diving.
Immediate.
Yes. It's the same with diving. Diving here 10 years ago, you might see a bull shark or something like that once in a blue moon. Now you almost see them every dive. So yeah, it's there, it's happening, and it's a noticeable increase. I feel like there's something to do with, like you said, like an inshore kind of issue, like what's bringing them in. And I think, one, like I said, I don't know, but I think where we should all be is just asking more questions about it in terms of, it's never just as simple as like, there's too many sharks, so let's go start killing sharks and that will fix the problem. What it is like, okay, well, we've sure built a lot more artificial reefs inshore here in the Gulf. We've sure done, like, what are the fisheries like for commercial fishing, and how is that associated with the food sources that they were happy with offshore? Does that have anything to do with it? So let's all kind of keep asking questions instead of just coming to conclusions.
Right. And certainly infighting amongst, it seems like the people that are fighting are the people that are interested in the ocean, like fishermen, divers, commercial fishermen, people who love sharks, people who love fish, people who would never hurt anything. All of these people, it's all the same thing. We're all interested in the same thing, a healthy ocean, right? We all want the same thing.
Right.
But and we're all the people that actually should be united, but we're the ones that are infighting when the rest of the world that doesn't really care. I mean, a healthy ocean, too many sharks, they don't care. They're never going to go to the ocean.
Yeah.
And there's a whole bunch of those people.
And those are the people that need to understand that like a healthy ocean is important for them too, you know. And I think a lot of that infighting that you speak of is a product of the fact that none of us can admit our own bias in the situation. So all of these people that you mentioned are people that love the ocean. Like I dive, I fish, I do all these, I surf, I do all these things. So I have multi interests in how the ocean is utilized. But when it comes down to it, it's like, I'm going to say, if I have an opinion on the matter, then I'm going to admit that I'm a little biased as a diver, that I want to see, you know, certain water quality. I want to see certain, you know, reef quality. A fisherman needs to admit that they're biased to the fact that they want to catch more fish and they want to, you know, like, and everyone's pretending like I don't have bias. I think they have bias and they have an agenda. We all have agendas. When it comes to the ocean, there's a reason why we love it, and that creates a bias within us. So if we all accept that and all just have conversations about, okay, well then how do we all come together and make it better? Then that's the only way it's going to happen. I mean, hell, I've worked with big name I can't think of the word. Conservationist. I was thinking conversationalist,
like Jacques Cousteau.
Like big conservationists, and there's infighting amongst conservationists. You know what I mean? Because because the way they're trying to achieve conservation, they don't agree with how this other guy does it. And to me, and I hear these complaints in jumping around and working with these different big names in the conservation field. And they're like, dude, how, I mean, you're all working for the same goal, you know, and there's different ways to get to that goal. So, you know, the intentions should be really the issue here, not how you're getting it just gets really convoluted.
It does get that way, but it's the intention, I think, that everybody can agree with.
Yes.
It's the execution of that all of a sudden it's like, well, yeah, I want, I mean, you can take the same thing between fly fishermen and, you know, people that want to bait fish or whatever.
Right.
And it's like, okay, well, we all want more fish. We all want these fish to be protected. And you go for this, and then you realize, oh, this is going to be an all fly fishing place. And now this other group can't fish there. So they're upset that they put their support towards this agenda and it cut them out of it. So now they can't do what they wanted to do, even though the end result is maybe the protection of that area.
For sure.
I don't know that we're ever going to get around that. I don't know that.
Yeah, I don't know.
It's just really hard to exclude certain groups that obviously care about the resource and care about the area. And it's happened between inshore guys and offshore guys. It's happened between commercial fishermen and recreational fishermen. It's happened between divers and fishermen. It's happened between divers and people that feed sharks. Like there's a big
It happens with surfers and boogie boarders, and it doesn't matter how you utilize the ocean. Right. Everyone feels like their way is the only way.
Yeah, but how do you think that we get around that and somehow figure out that the best way is for everybody to use it? But I don't know. I mean, I guess there's some ways that you use the ocean or any resource that makes it impossible for somebody else to do what they're doing. Like if you like to surf by a pier and there are 500 fishing lines off of that pier, then you can't surf there, right? Like if that's the only break, you can either fish or you can surf, because you can't do both in that one little area. Maybe that's, I'm not a great surfer, but maybe that's not the best analogy. But there are certain things that, if you're trying to tarpon fish with a fly rod, but at the same time, there's 7,000 jet skis that are coming through that same area. That is not, the jet skiers are fine with it, but the fishermen are not. Right. So one activity makes the other activity impossible. That's a bad, I don't know that we're ever going to get around that, because there's so many different activities that people like to do. Eventually one is going to make another one impossible to do.
Right. Yeah. I think that, you definitely can't have it all. And this is Destin is definitely a good example of a destination in that respect. It's loaded with pontoon rentals and wave runner rentals and parasailing. It's loaded with charter boat fishing from inshore to back bay to all over the reefs, and there's scuba boats that are hitting those same reefs. You can't do those two things at the same time. There's just, and that's why people come down here, because there's so many different things to do. Now, if you move over to somewhere like, I don't know, a quieter area like St. Joe Bay or somewhere like that, that's more of like, you can, it's not as overrun, there's not, the infrastructure doesn't exist for that to be a problem or as big of a problem. But even there, like scalloping season is going to be open pretty soon. And that has become a complete shit show. Whereas I grew up doing that, and it was like the easiest, quietest, coolest thing you could do. Now you go out on opening weekend and share it with 5,000 of your closest friends on their boats. And the scallops are gone in 2 weeks. So it's
same thing with lobstering in the Keys, It went from something that was calm, just like you say, to literally a circus.
Yes.
And watch out, by the way, because you can get run over very easily. Yeah. But I don't know what the answer is, and I don't know if there is an answer. But what I hope is that people don't lose track of the most important thing, and that is that you continue to push for water quality, continue to push for environmental quality in the seagrass, in the reef, in the basic foundations of what make a healthy ocean. Because without those things, you don't have bait. Without bait, you don't have fish. And without fish, you don't have sharks. And without sharks, you don't have, it goes on. And it starts with, basically the water quality, I think. I think part of that answer is also just being able to, like, you can think that someone else is wrong in their approach and how to achieve that goal, but you have to accept the fact that you might not be right either. Right. You know what a great example of that is, as we bring it full circle back to kind of technology, is there are certain like technologies where, I was a flats guide for a long time, and I would go to these flats and I would know them like the back of my hand, literally. And you're on the platform and you're pulling around, and I was 100% sure that if there was a fish in that area, I would see it. Right. Yeah. It's over white sand. You could see anything that's there, right?
Yep.
And then we started fishing these bay boats where we get up on the tower, and I'm actually standing up on the tower. So now I'm another 10 feet higher than I was on the platform. And I'm really sure I can see everything, right? Like I'm now so high up. And then drones come along, and we're filming the show, and we're filming a show with drones. And I'm watching this footage, and I'm watching a school of bonefish go right by us within casting range that no one on the boat saw. And I am 100% sure that, before that, I'm like, if there's a fish here, I'm seeing it. The water's crystal clear. There's not a cloud in the sky. And I'm 100% sure that if there's a fish out there, I'm seeing it. Because you do see most of them, but you don't see all of them.
Right.
And when you have another technology that shows you, you didn't see these 30 over here, and you didn't see another school of 30 all day long. You saw singles, right? But a school of 30 swam right by you, and you have two professional fishing guides on the boat that are both looking in different directions, and no one saw those fish.
Yeah.
That's when you go, maybe I don't know everything.
And I'll take it a step further. If I had the 360 camera there to cast and threw one out there, I almost guarantee you, I would see something on that camera that the drone and nothing else saw.
100%.
Because it's at just this other angle, and there's ways fish can camouflage themselves, and there's all this. So it just creates this, you finally realize that, like, dude, there are so many different ways to look at this and see it in different perspectives. Like it's insane.
Yeah. I mean, or it could be as simple as no technology, and you're fishing someplace and you're 100% sure that the fish are behind you, and there's someone standing on a bridge that's gone, no, they're over there, man. They're right there. And you're looking and going, no, that guy obviously doesn't know what he's looking at, because there's nothing right there.
Right.
He's up on a bridge looking down.
Yeah.
He sees his eyeball.
It's right there. Trust him. Yeah. Like you might not be right.
It's never happened like that before. But just thinking you might not be right. I don't know. Is that something that you just kind of develop as you get more experience and more life experience? Is you kind of realize, maybe, I've been wrong before. Maybe I'm wrong again. I'm willing to accept that I'm wrong. Where when you're younger, or not that young people can't have that perspective, but it seems like maybe somebody doesn't have to be younger, just with less experience. I think it comes down to exposure. I think a lot of that has to do with how you get older, and if you've never left the county and you've fished one fishing spot your whole life, there is not one person that's going to come in and tell you any different than what you already know. But if you've traveled the world and you've seen things, and like you said, if you all of a sudden you've tried these different ways to see things, and all of a sudden and there's things there that you didn't think were there, then you start realizing, wow, I wasn't right. I thought that it was this. And, since I started diving with tiger sharks at the pier and, dropping the cameras, I've learned so much in terms of their behavior and why they're here and what to expect when they, when is a good time for me to dive with them. A lot of these things I could have claimed that I understood 5 years ago, but I didn't. I mean, it took me doing these things and learning about them to go, okay, yeah, like what I knew 5 years ago was very, very little. Mm-hmm.
So,
yeah. And that gets sped up with technology and everything. There's a whole population of fishermen that this is happening to now, and has been for the last 5 or 6 years. And that's the bass fishermen with this forward facing sonar, where they can literally, like a video game, they can see the fish that are in front of them. And all of a sudden they're not fishing in the way that they've been fishing for the last 20 years. They're fishing out in the middle of the lake, because that's where they can see clearly that the fish are right there. But before, it was kind of like, no, I know where they are. They're right over there, where I've always fished for them. And if they're out in the middle of the lake, then, how would you ever find them? Or I don't think they're out there. And now they're realizing, no, that's where most of them are.
Right.
And the other ones were just a few of the ones.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's an interesting world with the technology and I don't know, so many different groups doing so many different things. But I'll tell you what, I really like following your Instagram, and I'm going to continue to. I hope you do some more of those camera drops and some other cool stuff. It's really cool. So it's Color Earth Pro. And if anybody wants to follow there, do you do any other social media platforms, TikTok or anything else?
Yeah, TikTok. I do TikTok. It's Color Earth 2.0. So it's it's kind of like Color Earth H2O on the end. Mm-hmm. So that's my handle over there, or just search Shane Reynolds, and my YouTube is youtube.com/Shane Reynolds. And Facebook has been kind of reignited over the last 6 months. So, but that's typically just the Instagram stuff moving over there.
Oh, I gotcha. Do you do special edits for Facebook?
I might rehash older content that I haven't.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they started. We were able to kind of monetize that a little bit, so it's become relevant again. It was something that was just dead in the water for me for many years, and then it's grown like 20,000 followers in the last few months, and you know, and so I can kind of pick up some of that older content that I can kind of rehash, and a lot of that stuff that does well over there is more local stuff here. So
interesting.
That's what we try to keep it to there.
Very cool. Well, I'm going to make an introduction to my producer for you. Like I say, you're either going to love him or you're going to hate him. You're going to hate each other immediately. It's like two alphas getting together. It's either going to be like stepbrothers.
Yeah. How are we going to stay in? How are either of us going to stay in our lane?
I don't know, but I actually think you're gonna get along great.
Yeah.
But listen, man, I really appreciate you coming on the show. I enjoyed it. I learned a lot, and you've really led a really cool life, man. So
I appreciate it, dude. Thanks for having me. It's my pleasure, man. It's an honor.
We'll do it again. All right.
Awesome.
All right. Thanks. Everybody go follow him and check out all of the stuff that he's doing. It's really cool. If you're not following Color Earth Pro on Instagram, that's where I follow him. But like you said, he's got Facebook, TikTok, all the others. So go follow him there. And we'll be back with another awesome guest, just like Shane Reynolds. Next week, not just like Shane Reynolds. He's a one and only. But we'll have another awesome guest. All right. We'll see you.